CEO overhears janitor speaking 9 languages. What he does next shocks the entire office. The office buzzed with energy, the typical tension of a Tuesday morning pressing down on the bustling headquarters in Mexico City. Alejandro, the CEO, stood tall in his sleek office, the panoramic view of the city, a stark contrast to the feeling of isolation within him. He loved numbers, strategies, and the grind of business. But at the top, it was easy to forget the hum of life below. Street vendors shouted their wares, and the aroma of fresh tacos floated through the air. But their vibrancy seemed like a distant world. Stepping out for coffee, he walked the polished floors, the echo of his footsteps barely keeping pace with the weight on his shoulders. Employees were glued to their screens, unaware of the strange, unplanned moment about to unfold. He paused near the break room, drawn by low voices that leapt into the air like starlings taking flight. It was then that he caught the soft mellow. How could the man who cleaned this corporate tower know 9 languages? Alejandro's mind spun. Each phrase twisted and turned in the air, wrapping around his thoughts, igniting a curiosity that he couldn't control. The janitor's voice carried a depth of experience that Alejandro felt unprepared to unravel. It shattered the CEO's assumptions and peeled back layers he had never thought to question. He took a step back, heart thumping in his chest. What had he overlooked? What stories lay behind Don Manuel's spontaneous outbursts? The walls of his corporate tower seemed to close in, trapping him between the mundane routines of his life and the extraordinary talent sitting just outside his office door. The implications of this revelation churned inside him. Could a simple janitor possess skills that could transform not just his perspective, but the very fabric of the company? Alejandro hesitated, battling the tension between professionalism and curiosity, approaching the janitor. As he stood there, adrenaline surging through him like electric current, he took a breath, the taste of ambition and anxiety heavy on his tongue. Would he dare disturb this hidden world? What secrets might he uncover? The chapter closes here, leaving an unanswered question hanging in the air like the thick clouds outside. What happens next? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming up. And while you're here, hit that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching this? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The room was charged. The melodic cadence of Don Manuel's languages belied the mundane space surrounding him. Vibrations of a life untapped thrummed through Alejandro. What if this unassuming janitor held the key to something bigger than business? His heart raced, and he took a breath, determined to ask the man how he knew so much. But before he could move, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. It sliced through the air, a shocking jolt that made everyone in the office jump. Conversations died. Chairs scraped across the floor, and all eyes shifted toward the noise. Panic surged as whispers filled the break room. "What happened?" one employee asked, eyes wide. "Is everyone okay?" Another replied, nervously glancing at Alejandro. He looked back at Don Manuel, who froze, broom still in hand, a cloud of dust swirling around him like the aftermath of an explosion. Alejandro stepped toward the door, heart pounding, suddenly aware that the security of his carefully constructed world was shaking. He pushed the door open and stepped into the buzzing corridor. What lay before him was chaos. Papers fluttered like frightened birds. Employees stood in clusters, eyes darting everywhere. Then he smelled smoke. A thick, acrid scent started to choke the air. This was no ordinary accident. He could feel the panic twisting in his stomach. "Everyone stay calm," Alejandro shouted, trying to gain control. "What happened?" A young intern, her face pale and trembling, spoke up. There was a fire in the server room. I think it's spreading." His heart dropped. The server room held sensitive documents, the company's secrets and plans. If it was on fire, the consequences could be devastating. Suddenly, without warning, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the office into darkness. Gasps filled the air. Someone screamed. Alejandro turned back to Don Manuel, who stood watching, an unreadable expression on his face. And then a voice broke through the panic. "Wait!" It was Don Manuel, his voice calm yet powerful. "I know how to get to the emergency exits. Follow me." Alejandro stared at him, feeling something shift within him. The janitor stepped forward, guiding people through the darkened office, his sure footsteps breaking the tension. He moved with purpose, leading a small group, including Alejandro, towards safety. "Where did you learn to do this?" Alejandro asked in awe, following closely behind. But just before Don Manuel could reply, another loud crash echoed, followed by a rumble like thunder. The ceiling above them trembled. Small bits of plaster showered down. Then, the emergency lights flickered to life, casting an eerie glow. In the newfound light, a shadow moved, a figure emerging from the smoke. Everyone gasped as a tall man stumbled forward, clothes singed and face bruised. It was Javier, Alejandro's right-hand man, his expression wild. "We have to get everyone out. There's something you need to know." What could be bigger than a fire? Alejandro's mind buzzed. Was this an accident, or was it something more? The urgency in Javier's voice sent shivers down Alejandro's spine. "What's wrong?" he demanded. But before Javier could speak, Don Manuel turned his gaze sharply, wide eyes locking onto Alejandro's. "You need to trust me. Everything is not what it seems." Then, as if time stopped, a log fell from the ceiling, crashed to the ground, and the world tipped sideways. Alejandro's heart dropped. What did Don Manuel mean? What was hidden in the smoke and chaos? The air swirled with uncertainty as he faced the two men, a janitor with secrets and a trusted colleague unraveling. The shadows deepened. He could feel the weight of revelations hanging over their heads, and all he could think was, what happens next? Alejandro's heart pounded as he stared at Don Manuel, the dark atmosphere thick with uncertainty. The chaos swirled around him, frantic whispers, the sound of papers fluttering, the distant crack of falling debris. This wasn't just a fire anymore. It was a crisis that rattled the foundation of everything he thought he knew. "Trust you?" Alejandro's voice trembled, caught between disbelief and desperation. "Yes, trust me," Don Manuel urged, his eyes fierce and steady. "You don't understand yet, but you must follow me." Alejandro felt a tug of confusion and fear. He had always seen Don Manuel as just the janitor, but now he was asking him to take a leap into the unknown, to follow a man he thought he understood. As they pushed forward, the stench of smoke grew thick, clinging to Alejandro's throat. He could hear an employee behind him gasp. Panic crackled in the air. Just then, the emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. "Javier!" Alejandro turned to his right-hand man, but chaos erupted as a heavy metal beam crashed down nearby, narrowly missing a group huddled together. Screams filled the space, pushing Alejandro's instincts into overdrive. "Out!" he shouted, adrenaline surging. He plunged ahead, determined to clear a path, but Don Manuel didn't follow. Instead, he stood rooted in place, eyes locked onto the ground, breathing heavily. "Don Manuel!" Alejandro yelled, confusion spiking. "We have to go." Then, with a sudden gasp, Don Manuel clutched at his chest. A low wheeze escaped his lips. It's in the code. The company. They don't want you to know. What do you mean? Alejandro's voice rose, tinged with urgency. But before Don Manuel could respond, the office-splitting crash resonated like thunder. The lights flickered violently, revealing a dark silhouette emerging from the smoke. A woman, wild-haired and disheveled, a fire blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Alejandro froze, confusion flooding him. It was Isabella, the company's CFO, and everyone knew she hadn't been in the building. Isabella? He gasped, his world tilting. What are you doing here? Don't trust them, she shouted, eyes wide with fear as she stumbled closer. It's all a cover. The fire, it's not an accident. They want the data destroyed. A deafening bang cut through her words, followed immediately by a deep rumble. The ground shook beneath their feet. Papers exploded into the air, swirling like confetti in a storm. And just like that, everything shifted. The woman they thought was a loyal ally revealed a darker secret. Alejandro's heart raced with realization. Was there a conspiracy lurking in the shadows? Was the company he built on lies? In that electrifying moment, Don Manuel took a step forward, his expression fiercer than ever. You wanted to know about me, Alejandro? It's time you understand. I'm not just a janitor. I know things that could change everything. What do you mean? Alejandro's voice was a mere whisper now, overshadowed by the surrounding chaos. Before he could process the enormity of the situation, Isabella screamed, "Get out! It's all a trap!" In the confusion, Alejandro's mind spun. The office, the people around him, everything shifted like a mirage. The air weighed heavy with deceit. Was Don Manuel the key to uncovering the truth? Or was Isabella hiding even darker secrets? The ground shook violently again, and smoke filled the air. As Alejandro struggled to comprehend the shifting realities, a single question consumed him. What if everything he thought he knew was a lie? Alejandro's heart raced, thoughts tangled in confusion. The chaos around them felt like a nightmare unfurling, and for a brief moment, everything froze. Isabella's words, the looming fire, and the weight of secrets. He looked at Don Manuel, who stood firm, eyes blazing with a fire of their own. "Trust me, Alejandro," Don Manuel repeated, urgency spilling into his tone. "I know things about this company that will shatter everything you think you know." Before Alejandro could reply, a sickening crack echoed through the office, the voice of destruction booming. The floor trembled and a shower of debris fell from the ceiling. Panic surged around them, employees scrambling, fear painted across every face. "Get out!" Javier shouted, pushing past them, eyes wild. But Isabella grabbed Alejandro's arm, her grip ironclad. "It's not safe," she yelled, her face twisted with anxiety. "We need to find the source. This fire is planned." "What do you mean?" Alejandro's voice broke, confusion clawing at him. "There's a network, a conspiracy," Isabella shouted over the roar. "People want you out, Alejandro. They want the company's downfall." Just then, a piercing wail erupted from the back of the room, followed by a heavy thump. All heads turned in horror, eyes landing on a figure sprawled on the floor, surrounded by swirling smoke. "Christina!" someone cried, and Alejandro's stomach dropped. She was the intern, the bright-eyed girl who always offered him coffee with a smile. In that instant, something snapped within Alejandro. He squeezed Isabella's arm, his voice low but fierce. "What do we do?" "Follow Don Manuel. He knows a way out," she said, her gaze fierce yet vulnerable. As they turned toward the janitor, Don Manuel's expression shifted, a mix of determination and sorrow. "I wasn't just cleaning this place," he said, voice steady, each word heavy with a weight. "I've been watching." Suddenly, another explosion rocked the floor. Ceiling tiles crashed down. The lights flickered before going dark again, leaving only the eerie glow of flames casting shadows. Don't stay here, Javier barked, losing his composure as he shoved Alejandro forward. Move, and then silence. In the stillness that fell over the office, Alejandro felt a chill. It had descended like a veil, smothering the noise and chaos. He searched for Don Manuel, but he had vanished into the shadows. Alexander turned frantically. Where is he? Before he could think, a soft whisper filled the space, slinking through the air, pulling his attention. A small device nestled in the corner of the office began to glow. Its light pulsed, casting a strange aura in the dim environment. What is that? Isabella's voice trembled. As they edged closer, the screen flickered to life. Lines of code raced across, revealing names, numbers, data Alejandro recognized. No, this can't be. His blood ran cold. It was confidential information, but not just any data. It was records of employee misconduct, financial fraud, and blackmail. What the hell? Javier gasped, eyes wide. What is this? And then it hit Alejandro like a freight train. The truth crashed over him. This wasn't just a fire. It was a cover-up, a deliberate attempt to smoke out secrets. The faces of his trusted employees flashed in his mind, the loyalty he'd believed in, the team he thought he knew. They're using the fire to destroy evidence, he shouted. But before he could say more, Don Manuel's voice echoed through the gloom, strong and clear. It's not just them. You've been part of it too, Alejandro. You're being played. Alejandro froze, his heart plummeting as disbelief twisted inside him. What do you mean? There's more to this story than anyone understands. It's time you learn the truth about yourself, your company, and me. Everything he knew hung in the balance, secrets clamoring for attention. What was the truth? What did it mean? The questions clawed at him, but in that moment of silence and shock, one pressing thought screamed louder than the rest. Was everything a lie? Alejandro's heart raced as he stared at Don Manuel, shadows flickering across their faces from the glowing device. The weight of Don Manuel's words hung thick in the air, coupled with the chaos surrounding them. You're being played, echoed in Alejandro's mind. You've got to be kidding, he mumbled quickly, disbelief tumbling over his thoughts. I've built everything on trust. Trust can be a weapon, Don Manuel said forcefully, his eyes steady, piercing through the smoke. The people you believe in are hiding dark truths. Trust me, we need to get out of here. Before Alejandro could respond, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the air. It churned his stomach and drew their attention back to the glowing screen. The names and numbers danced dangerously, revealing secrets that seemed to pulse with life. The chaos, the fire, it was all linked. Look, Javier shouted, pointing frantically. It's not just data. Those are employee files, blackmail, misconduct. What the hell is this? The air thickened with fear, the urgency growing as the truth seeped in. Alejandro felt like the ground was giving way beneath him. Isabella, he started, glancing toward her, but she was already moving, leaning closer to the screen. Suddenly, another eruption filled the air, as if the building itself was protesting. The cracks deepened, vibrations bolting through the floor. We need to leave now, Isabella screamed, a wild look in her eyes. Not until we understand what this is. Alejandro spat, anger bubbling up, bewilderment at how his world was spiraling uncontrolled. Don't you see? This information is everything, Isabella shot back, her tone desperate as smoke curled around them. We need to expose this. A horrid roar filled the air, drowning out their voices. The lights flickered again, casting chilling shadows. And then, in that flickering uncertainty, a heavy thud slammed into the ground nearby. Dust exploded in a cloud, and out of the haze emerged a figure, staggering forward. Christina! Someone cried out, panic igniting confusion. Alejandro's heart sank anew. Get back! In the turmoil, Christina stumbled and collapsed, fear etched on her young face. They're not just burning data, she lisped, gasping for breath. They framed you, Alejandro. It's all part of a plan. Every word hit like a punch to the gut. Alejandro's chest tightened as a crushing sense of betrayal washed over him. What plan? What do you mean? But before Christina could explain, a roar blasted through the office, a wave of noise that drowned everything else. The ceiling started to give, dropping tons of debris toward them. Alejandro had only a split second to react. Get down, he yelled, arms outstretched as he pushed Isabella and Javier aside. A beam crashed down, sending up a cloud of dust as chaos erupted. When the dust settled, Alejandro looked up from where he had fallen. The screen was still lit, but the data was flickering and fading away. At that moment, a heavy realization struck him. Don Manuel, where? And just like that, the janitor vanished into the smoke. Alejandro's heart sank. No, he shouted, scrambling to his feet. Don Manuel. Desperation clawed at him. Had he just lost his only ally in this twisted mess? Then, amidst the haze and confusion, something shifted in the air. A figure cloaked in darkness stepped forward, silhouetted against the glow of the screen. Alejandro's breath caught in his throat. It was Don Manuel, but there was something different. His confident presence didn't feel right. I told you, Alejandro, he said, voice low and calm, yet heavy with gravity. You need to understand before it's too late. Before Alejandro could process the shift, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Javier, ashen-faced, staring at Don Manuel in disbelief. No, it can't be. And then the shocking truth hit like a freight train, shattering the fragile fabric of trust. You're not who we thought, Javier accused, recoiling, eyes wide. But just as the realization sank in, another deafening explosion erupted, shaking the world. And the shadows deepened. Alejandro's mind raced. Who was Don Manuel really? What had he been hiding? And as he faced the man he thought he could trust, the question loomed larger than ever. What else had been a lie? Alejandro felt the air thicken as he faced Don Manuel, uncertainty crashing around them like debris from above. The glowing screen pulsed ominously, revealing more secrets than he was ready to confront. He could see the tension in Javier's eyes, the distrust forming a chasm between them. You're not who we thought, Javier shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. The worry etched in his features mirrored Alejandro's disbelief. Everyone hides their true selves, Don Manuel, but there's no time. The real threat is closer than you think. Just then, another explosion rocked the building. The lights flickered wildly, shadows dancing across the walls. Alejandro rushed forward, adrenaline surging. What do you know? We don't have time for games. Don Manuel stepped closer, a ghostly calm amidst the falling chaos. You need to listen carefully. There's a reason they want you out. It goes beyond greed. This company is built on corruption. They're willing to destroy anyone who poses a threat. What are you talking about? Alejandro's mind raced. Who are they? But before he could hear more, another loud bang echoed, and the flickering lights ceased. The room plunged into darkness, save for the shimmering screen still alive with treachery. Then, out of the gloom came Christina's voice, quivering and broken. Don't trust him, she cried. Her eyes scanned the debris-strewn room, wild and frantic. He's part of it, I saw him. Alejandro's heart clenched. What do you mean? What did you see? He was in the files, Christina sputtered, brushing dust off her uniform. He's been here. He knows everything about us. Every deal, every wrong turn. I saw his name. Silence fell over the room, heavy and thick. Confusion electrified the air. Don Manuel's face drained of color, his fists clenching. That's not— No, Javier interjected, his voice rising. You're lying. I've seen you. before they could argue. A piercing roar erupted from somewhere deep within the building. The ground shook violently. Alejandro stumbled, reaching out to steady himself. He watched as dust swirled around his friends, their expressions contorting between disbelief and horror. Cristina took a step back, desperation flashing in her eyes. "We have to get out. This isn't just a fire, it's a trap." "Stop!" Alejandro shouted above the cacophony. "We need answers, not more accusations." And then, as if the universe conspired to illustrate his worst fears, the screen flashed again. A series of images flooded the light. Meetings in dim rooms, handshakes with shadowy figures, and exchanges of cash. It was all there, revealing collusion and deceit. And at the center of it all, Don Manuel. "Wait, no," Alejandro gasped. How could this be? His heart dropped like a stone. You were in on this all along?" "No," Don Manuel's voice faltered, desperation ringing through the air. "Let me explain." But another deafening crack silenced him, followed swiftly by a cascade of debris from above. A moment of stunned silence hung in the air before Isabella shouted, "Run!" Amid stunned confusion, they turned to flee, but Alejandro's feet felt glued to the floor. The room spun wildly, chaos reaching a fever pitch. They shuffled toward the exit, but suddenly the lights clicked back on, revealing a shocking figure standing defiantly amidst the asserting smoke. It was Rosa, the head of security, wielding a fire extinguisher. "There you are," she barked. "It's all falling apart, isn't it?" Alejandro's heart raced. "What do you know?" Rosa smiled, a predatory grin that sent chills racing down his spine. "Everything and everyone, and you're all expendable." With that, the room erupted. Everything Alejandro thought he knew shattered like glass, leaving him standing amidst the ruins of mistrust. Who was really in control? What was the truth? And as he felt the weight of the world pressing down, he sensed that time was running out. Would they escape before everything collapsed? Or was this just the beginning of an even darker unraveling? Alejandro felt the pulse of fear kick in his chest as the chaos escalated around him. The air was thick with smoke and confusion, and the weight of the moment pressed down like the falling debris. He turned his attention back to Rosa, whose presence felt like a weight in the air. "What do you mean?" he pressed, his voice strained as he tried to make sense of the swirling emotions. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, and for an instant, everything felt surreal yet clear. Papers swirled like confetti, shadows danced menacingly across the walls. The reality of their surroundings crashed in on him. This fire, it wasn't just an accident. Javier was gripping his arm, eyes wide and frantic. "Alejandro, we need to go!" But before Alejandro could reply, a loud crack resonated from the ceiling, forcing everyone to jump. The sound reverberated in their chests, heartbeats syncing with the rhythm of disaster. Just as panic began to seize him, the door slammed open, admitting a figure silhouetted against the light. Elena, the company's top lawyer. "What are you doing here?" Javier shouted, confusion rippling through the group. "I'm here to help," Elena declared, her face drawn but determined. "But we don't have much time. They're coming for everyone involved." "Involved in what?" Isabella demanded, frustration spilling over. "What do you know?" "I know that the fire isn't just about data," Elena snapped, taking a step closer. "It's about protecting those at the top. There are people, high-profile people, who don't want the truth exposed." Alejandro's heart sank. "What truth?" he pressed hard, desperate for clarity. "There are files, damning evidence that anyone could use. There's a conspiracy within the company." Before she could finish, the ground shook as another wave of turbulence rocked the building. A gasp slipped from Cristina's lips. "We can't stay. It's all a trap." But amidst the chaos, something shifted. The air thickened with tension like a rubber band pulled too tight. Without warning, the computer screen burst into a flurry of images, security footage, meetings, exchanges. each frame more incriminating than the last. Alejandro's breath hitched. "Look," Christina screamed, pointing to the screen. Don Manuel, he was there. In the flickering light, everyone turned towards Don Manuel. The realization struck them hard. His name flashed on the screen, tied to the very files meant to expose the corrupt dealings sprawled out in front of them. "I didn't," Don Manuel began, but his voice was drowned out by a sudden, violent explosion that tore through the air. Fire erupted, sending flames licking at their feet. "No, not this." Alejandro shouted, heart racing. He felt raw panic claw at his throat. This betrayal felt personal. Here stood the man he thought was an ally, now revealed as a potential traitor. "What's going on?" Don Manuel stepped back, hands raised. "I'm not who you think I am. You need to know." But before he could elaborate, Rosa lunged toward the screen, fingers flying over the controls. "This needs to be shut down. If they get this data, it's all over." "Stop!" Alejandro yelled, urgency overwhelming him. And then, in a shocking twist, the screen blared to life, revealing a live feed from security cameras across the building. Officers stormed in, guns drawn, surrounded by smoke and panic. "Get them now!" a voice commanded from the flashing screen. Alejandro's heart raced as he recognized the figure leading the charge. It was the company's COO, Felipe, directing the raid. The wolf among the sheep. "What the hell?" Javier gasped, feeling the change in atmosphere. "Felipe is behind this?" "Not just Felipe," Elena whispered, her eyes wide. "He's been setting you up from the start. He's the mastermind." While the room spun with disbelief, a new realization dawned. Alejandro felt his world tilting, a blurring line between enemies and allies. Who could be trusted? Who would betray him next? Amid the chaos, a siren pierced the air. Panic rose thick and suffocating. All eyes darted to Alejandro. "We have to move now." "Where?" Christina shouted, tears brimming. "What do we do?" Then, as the flames flickered dangerously close, Alejandro's voice broke through. "We fight back, no matter the cost." And as chaos erupted, a single thought pressed through the tumult. What if the real battle was yet to come? Who among them would survive? Alejandro felt the pulse of fear kick in his chest as the chaos escalated around him. The air was thick with smoke and confusion, and the weight of the moment pressed down like the falling debris. He turned his attention back to Rosa, whose presence felt like a weight in the air. "What do you mean?" he pressed, his voice strained as he tried to make sense of the swirling emotions. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, and for an instant, everything felt surreal yet clear. Paper swirled like confetti. Shadows danced menacingly across the walls. The reality of their surroundings crashed in on him. This fire, it wasn't just an accident. Javier was gripping his arm, eyes wide and frantic. "Alejandro, we need to go." But before Alejandro could reply, a loud crack resonated from the ceiling, forcing everyone to jump. The sound reverberated in their chests, heartbeats syncing with the rhythm of disaster. Just as panic began to seize him, the door slammed open, admitting a figure silhouetted against the light, Elena, the company's top lawyer. "What are you doing here?" Javier shouted, confusion rippling through the group. "I'm here to help," Elena declared, her face drawn but determined. "But we don't have much time. They're coming for everyone involved." "Involved in what?" Isabella demanded, frustration spilling over. "What do you know?" "I know that the fire isn't just about data," Elena snapped, taking a step closer. "It's about protecting those at the top. There are people, high-profile people, who don't want the truth exposed." Alejandro's heart sank. "What truth?" He pressed hard, desperate for clarity. "There are files, damning evidence that anyone could use. There's a conspiracy within the company." Before she could finish, The ground shook as another wave of turbulence rocked the building. A gasp slid from Christina's lips. "We can't stay. It's all a trap." But amidst the chaos, something shifted. The air thickened with tension like a rubber band pulled too tight. Without warning, the computer screen burst into a flurry of images, security footage, meetings, exchanges, each frame more incriminating than the last. Alejandro's breath hitched. "Look!" Christina screamed, pointing to the screen. Don Manuel, he was there. In the flickering light, everyone turned towards Don Manuel. The realization struck them hard. His name flashed on the screen, tied to the very files meant to expose the corrupt dealings sprawled out in front of them. "I didn't," Don Manuel began, but his voice was drowned out by a sudden, violent explosion that tore through the air. Fire erupted, sending flames licking at their feet. "No, not this!" Alejandro shouted, heart racing. He felt raw panic claw at his throat. This betrayal felt personal. Here stood the man he thought was an ally, now revealed as a potential traitor. "What's going on?" Don Manuel stepped back, hands raised. "I'm not who you think I am. You need to know." But before he could elaborate, Rosa lunged toward the screen, fingers flying over the controls. "This needs to be shut down. If they get this data, it's all over." "Stop!" Alejandro yelled, urgency overwhelming him. And then, in a shocking twist, the screen blared to life, revealing a live feed from security cameras across the building. Officers stormed in, guns drawn, surrounded by smoke and panic. "Get them, now!" a voice commanded from the flashing screen. Alejandro's heart raced as he recognized the figure leading the charge. It was Felipe, the company's COO, directing the raid. The wolf among the sheep. "What the hell?" Javier gasped, feeling the change in atmosphere. "Felipe is behind this?" "Not just Felipe," Elena whispered, her eyes wide. "He's been setting you up from the start. He's the mastermind." While the room spun with disbelief, a new realization dawned. Alejandro felt his world tilting. A blurring line between enemies and allies. Who could be trusted? Who would betray him next? "I can prove it," Elena screamed over the noise, stepping forward. "I have evidence, hidden files he doesn't want you to find. Listen." But no one could focus. Panic surged as debris continued to fall. Then came a loud, thunderous crash. The ceiling gave way near the exit, smoke billowing through the opening, cutting their escape. "Run!" Isabella shouted, horror etched on her face. But before they could move, a sound pierced the chaos. A small child's voice, wavering and terrified. "Help me!" Everyone froze. Christina gasped, recognizing the voice. "That's my little sister." Alejandro looked at Christina, heart pounding. "But how?" "I don't know. She was supposed to be at school," Christina screamed, her eyes wild with fear. In that moment, everything shifted. The urgency of their escape paled against the overwhelming instinct to save the child. "Go!" Javier shouted, grabbing Alejandro's arm, but Alejandro shook his head, determination surging. "No, we can't lead her!" Everyone looked at one another, fear and uncertainty swirling in the air. Elena stepped forward, glancing at the screen once more. If he's hiding this, he's hiding more. He wouldn't risk it if he didn't have something valuable. Alejandro's gut twisted at the thought. What else was hidden? What else could Felipe be hiding? But just as they turned, flanking the darkness, a figure cloaked in the shadows emerged, wall of chaos behind him. It was Don Manuel again, but now his eyes gleamed with a different intensity. "I know where she is." "Wait, are you serious?" Javier shot back, mistrust leaking from his tone. "Yes, but you have to believe me. I know how Felipe thinks. I can get you to her." For the first time, Alejandro considered the possibility that maybe, just maybe, Don Manuel was not the enemy. "What are you waiting for?" He pressed, hope and fear intertwining. The flames flickered again. They needed a decision, and they needed it fast. With one last glance back toward the screen, toward the revelations that had shaken everything, Alejandro knew there was no turning back. "Let's go find her." But a shocking voice echoed through the smoke before they could move. "Don't! It's a trap!" And as they turned, all eyes landed on Felipe, stepping into the glow of the firelight, a chilling smile twisting across his face. "Did you really think I'd let you escape?" In that moment, everything Alejandro thought he understood shifted completely. What would they risk to find the truth? What lay waiting beneath layers of deception? The questions hung thick in the air, leaving them all gasping for a way out. Alejandro felt the heat of fear radiating off Felipe's smile. "Did you really think I'd let you escape?" The words sliced through the air, thick with smoke and deception. Shadows played tricks with Alejandro's mind, twisting and turning everything he believed was solid. "Wait, what do you mean by that?" he demanded, gripping Javier's arm. His heart thudded loud, drowning out the chaos around them. The flames flickered unforgivingly, casting eerie light over their worried faces. "Your precious evidence means nothing if you don't live to share it," Felipe sneered, stepping closer, eyes glinting with malice. He shifted slightly, and Alejandro caught a glimpse of the officers behind him, armed and ready, lurking in the smoky hallway. Cristina clutched her sister's picture, the one they'd been trying to save, but Alejandro's gut twisted. "We're not going anywhere with you," he shot back, defiance igniting a spark of courage. But just as Felipe opened his mouth to retaliate, a loud crash reverberated through the structure, shaking loose debris from the ceiling. Papers sped past, swirling in frantic chaos, like spirits escaping. "Run!" Javier shouted. The fear was palpable. The moment was thick with urgency. Then suddenly, Felipe lunged. His hand shot forward, grabbing Alejandro's collar, eyes furious and desperate. "You don't get it. This is bigger than you." As Alejandro fought back, his instincts racing, he sensed something shift in the air. Between the thundering heartbeats and the breathing chaos, something clicked. A voice broke through, commanding yet surprisingly calm. "You've all been led here for a reason." Everyone froze, and the smoke swirled, revealing yet another figure stepping forward. Tatiana, the company's former COO. She had been gone for months, supposedly out of the picture. "No, Tatiana?" Alejandro stammered, confusion twisting through him. "Yes, you've been played like puppets. I never left. I was always watching." She raised her chin, strength radiating from her. "You're the key player in all this," Elena exclaimed, disbelief flashing across her features. "But why?" Tatiana smiled, a fierce glint in her eyes. "Because you were too busy trusting the wrong people." Then she reached into her pocket, pulling out a small device, so unassuming yet filled with power. "This is the proof you all need. The hidden files, the plans, everything Felipe doesn't want you to discover." As she pressed a button, images ignited on the screen. Emerging were connections between board members, dark deals, even a list of those surveilling them. The truth was explosive, more than Alejandro ever expected. "What the hell?" Javier gasped, leaning in closer. Confusion danced in the atmosphere, blending with the encroaching smoke. And then, unmistakably, the temperature dropped. A siren blared, sending everyone into a heightened frenzy. "They're coming." Rosa screamed, her head whipping back towards the hallway. But Tatiana remained calm, her voice steady. "This isn't just a fire, folks. This was set up. And I'm not just here to help. I'm here to take back what's mine." "Take back?" Alejandro echoed, the weight of her words crushing over him. Felipe's facade crumbled. "You've betrayed me," he roared, anger visible in every contorted feature. But before he could act, Tatiana stepped forward, dishing out a devastating blow. "I've always been 5 steps ahead, Felipe. Your empire ends tonight." With that, the ground shook again, a hard reverberation that felt like the earth itself was fighting back. A hollow crack echoed, followed by silence. Alejandro swallowed hard. What if everything I trusted is a lie? The walls of his reality felt thin, like glass waiting to shatter. But beneath the panic surged something flickering. A chance, a glimmer of possibility. We can't just stand here. We need an escape plan. And as they stood huddled together, surrounded by flames and betrayal, a tangible question hung in the air. Who were they truly fighting against? And who could they trust? Alejandro's heart raced as he faced Felipe, the flames dancing wickedly around them. You really think you can trap us like this? He shot back, refusing to back down. It was a moment tinged with desperation, the truth clawing at his mind. Every second felt like an eternity as the reality hit them. The stakes were higher than ever. Tatiana stepped forward, her voice steady despite the chaos. Felipe, your time is up. Let's not pretend this is about business anymore. Is that so? Felipe laughed, a chilling sound. You think you can just walk out? You don't even know what you're facing. With a swift movement, he signaled the officers behind him, and they moved like a pack of wolves, surrounding them as thick smoke curled like a predator drawn to its prey. No, Javier shouted, gripping Alejandro's arm in fear. We need to move. The tension snapped. Everyone follow my lead, Alejandro commanded, the urgency flowing through him. They rushed toward the exit, but the path was blocked. Don Manuel's face was a mask of determination. I have a way. Follow me. Without hesitation, he pushed through the chaos, leading the group toward a side exit Alejandro hadn't noticed before. Trust him, Elena yelled, meeting Alejandro's gaze. He knows. As they sprinted through the thick smoke, the flames roared behind them, a hungry beast waiting for its prey. Keep moving, Alejandro urged, adrenaline pumping, every ounce of fear fueling his rush. Cristina managed to shout over the din. What about my sister? Where is she? Focus on getting out, Javier yelled, voice choked with urgency. The sound of splintering wood echoed as debris fell around them. There's no time. We can save her later. Alejandro snapped, the desperation forcing him to be bold. They had to get out of the building before it collapsed. They stumbled through the exit, sunlight hitting their faces like a blessing amidst the chaos. Outside, the air felt fresher, but danger was still looming. They ran into the plaza, panting and exhausted, heartbeats echoing in their ears. What now? Isabella asked, glancing back at the building as smoke billowed into the sky. Tatiana moved closer, her face serious. We exposed them. We have the evidence. We can't let this go. Felipe won't just back down, Don Manuel warned, brows knitted. He'll come after all of us. Let him try, Alejandro growled, newfound resolve flooding through him. He can't hide forever. Alejandro turned to the group, a mix of emotions swirling in the air. We're in this together now. No more lies, no more deception. Let's make sure this never happens again. He took a deep breath, looking at his colleagues. No, his friends. They had faced immense danger together, each revealing strength he hadn't known existed. As they walked away from the site, Alejandro turned his chest tight. It was Felipe, emerging from the smoke, eyes blazing with fury. What's next? Alejandro whispered, bracing for the next wave of uncertainty. And just like that, the future hung in balance. What lay ahead? The echoes of their past began to haunt him, answering his questions in chilling silence. Now, I need you to do something important. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss upcoming exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait another second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know what happens next. You have to support us. Only true fans understand how vital it is to keep this community thriving.